Hello and welcome to Home versus House. I'm Lisa, and this is a channel where I share budget-friendly home decor and lifestyle ideas. Guys, I am back in my backyard garden doing a walkthrough, a July walkthrough of this space and what it looks like in July, early July, what's blooming, what's thriving, and what's not thriving so much. And so here we go with the walkthrough. So I'm going to start at the entrance of this garden space. So here, this is an arch that I created, I built some weeks ago. I showed it on previous videos, and I've just been having fun decorating this space, adding all manner of garden decorations. Right now, garden decorations are on clearance, so I've been picking up a few items. I've also used a lot of things that I already had in my stash and bringing it out here. So this hanging basket is something that I had before, and about a month or so I added some annual blooms to brighten up the space and to add color back here. And this is what I did on this side. I added this thrifted lantern as well as another hanging basket to kind of mirror the other side. Over on this side of the garden, I have this garden room. This is my reading nook, my relaxation nook. This is a shaded area, so I did add some shaded plants here within the last couple of years. My hydrangea had not flowered this year, but I planted it last year. So in between, I have a hellebora plant or a lentil rose. And then I just have these two wooden ducks in that corner. I have a peonies that I had in another area, and I moved it to this more shaded area. I have this standing candelabra that I am using to burn some citronella candles while I'm out here to keep the mosquitoes at bay. I have a bleeding heart over here, a heuchera, and a stilbe, and another hydrangea down here. Over in this corner, I have a sedum plant. So this is an autumn joy. So I can't wait for it to bloom in the coming weeks, late August, early fall. I have a daisy in between that was blooming some weeks ago. And guys, in this old garden boots, I threw down some marigold seeds that is sprouting. I just threw a bunch of seeds in there, so it's probably more plants than that space could accommodate for the plants to thrive. So I'm probably gonna have to transplant them, but I'm gonna leave them there for a little bit just to have them get a little bit bigger before I transplant it. Here I am trying to regrow my clematis, and then I have a bean plant growing up this pole. So guys, this piece was a recent piece that I picked up at a garage sale. And I'm using it as a trellis. So it's a metal piece. I'm using it as a trellis for my clematis for now. And then over on this side of the arch, I just have some decorative pieces laid out. My bird has fallen. I also have another seating spot over here. And some of my indoor plants is also in this space. All right, guys, let's move along in the gardens. So I recently added these steps, wooden steps here as well too, as an easier path. This garden is on a slope, and there are some areas that is a little bit, the slope is awkward, and this is one such area. And so I recently added these steps to make it a little bit easier, and it has been easier to walk this path here. Over in this patch, I have my coneflower and black eye Susan thriving. The blooms are beautiful. I love the golden touch that it adds to this space. I have some basil growing in the cinder blocks, and then some lettuce in this side, and then a bonus black eye Susan in here. I have a begonia. I have a begonia in this pot. All right, let's keep going. So as we come along side here, I have a garden bed on this side, guys, where I'm growing some cabbage. I recently threw down some collard green seeds, and I see them sprouting. So I'm hoping that they will survive the heat and maybe thrive a little bit more as the weather cools down. But so this is just an experiment to see how well they will take the heat for now. And if they don't do so well, I'm going to replant some as it cools down some more. I have this cabbage plant right here, and I just threw some chicken wire over it so that the butterflies and other pollinators don't eat it out. I also have been adding some neem oil to my cabbage and other plants to keep the bugs at bay. I have a pepper plant here. And then on this trellis, so this is just pieces of metal gates, I added some thrifted decor piece. The clothespins are there because I added a shade cloth here days ago, and I just took it off for a little bit because today is going to be a cooler day. So I took it off today, and I will add it back as the heat rises. Over here I have a Weigela plant, and then I recently added this taller shepherd hook. So I recently got those, 2 of those thrifting this week. This lantern was also thrifted, and I had those in my stash for a while. So I added that here just to give some height, some elevation to this space. In this pot, I had brought some creeping Jenny up from the front garden just as a filler here. So let's see how it's doing in the weeks to come. Up in this planter, I have some thyme, and then I recently added some metal garden decor piece that I picked up for a few cents at Dollar General. And I have a solar light in there as well. Guys, and you will see throughout this garden, I have a mixture of perennial shrubs. I have a little bit of annual to add some blooms. I have some other perennials, and then vegetables and herbs. So that's what's in this space. So guys, I have a collection of herbs back here that I use both in my cooking and I use it for teas. So I am a tea drinker, and I have like a morning routine of drinking tea as well as an evening routine. And I use some of the herbs in that routine. So for example, my thyme, I use mostly for daytime, and then my lavender and chamomile I use for evening. Alongside here, I have some foxgloves and then some ground covers. This gate, I am going to go out here for a little bit because I'll show you the development that I have out here. I planted some vegetables and other plants alongside the exterior. So this is what the outside looks like. I have some cucumbers. So these are melon cucumbers growing, and they're flowering. I also planted a patch of bearded iris months ago, and then in between I have some coneflower that sprouted in another area on the inside of the garden, and I brought it out here. It's a combination of coneflower and black eye Susan. So I just planted it out here, and we'll see how it grows up for the coming years. I have the sweet potatoes on the inside, growing up and spreading. Okay. Also have sweet corn on the inside there too. So let's get back in and I'll continue on this garden tour, but I wanted to show you out here how the garden has extended. All right, let's get back in. So this is the inside where I have some potatoes growing, carrots, as well as the sweet corn. I have another patch of creeping Jenny growing over here, an eggplant in this pot, and then some butterfly bushes over here, and I'm seeing some blooms on the butterfly bush here. My corn, each of them have at least one ear of corn. So I'm excited about that. My potatoes are flowering as well. And then over here I have a cucumber growing up this garden art slash trellis. I'm gonna go back over here, guys. So about a week ago I planted 2 winter squash. There's one, and then there's the other here. So I want to see how that's gonna go. Some more cabbage along in this garden bed. I have yarrow growing. So I recently planted those, and some sedum, some ground cover sedum. I'm adding actually pops of red in this space for this season. So I had a yellow. In the springtime with the bearded iris, it's mostly purple. And so this year I've added some red perennials. In the cinder blocks, I have a patch, like 3 patches of lemongrass. And I use that in my tea. Here's 1 patch. Here's a second. And the third is over here. Here's my sweet potato. So this is the other side of what I just showed. All right. In this pot, I have rosemary. And I use that in my cooking as well as teas. In this garden bed, I have an assortment of things. I have some beans growing up this trellis. That's doing nicely. I also threw down some kale, and I see sprouts of them popping up. This broccoli was from last fall. I'm also letting some things self-seed. So that's what's going on in this garden bed. And then I added some thrifted decor pieces on the top. This is another garden bed that when it's hotter out, I use these clothespins to pin on some shade cloth too. And the shade cloth I'm using is actually just landscape, black landscape fabric. That's what I had on hand, and that's what I'm using. On the outside of the garden bed, I have 2 cantaloupe that's growing. So this is one of them, and there's some flowers, and it actually started down at that end, and it's growing up around is what my plans are for it. And I have a second one growing as well. Over here, I have a forsythia that's growing. And I planted those probably about 2 months ago. In between my bearded iris, I added some zinnias. I had those in my front garden, and I transplanted a few in between here. They're mostly pinks, and so the plan was to add some color for the summer. Again, the bearded iris, they bloom in the spring, and there's some beautiful purple blooms. But then after spring, this area is pretty green, so I added the zinnias to bring some color here to this space in the summer. I see one of them is blooming, and that one is a orange color. So that's blooming in here. So let's see what the rest of them, how pink they are or how orange. Up front they are mostly pink. There's some orange, and the soil is pretty similar in my front garden as it is back here. So let's see what colors would pop up, but it's mostly pink or orange back here. Either way, it's beautiful, and it will serve the purpose of adding colors back here. I have my honeysuckle. That's not doing all that great. There's a lot of yellow leaves. I recently cut back the branches, letting more sun here, so I don't think that's ideal for the honeysuckle, but it's still growing, so I'll take that. All right, let's see. In this patch over here, as we come down alongside here, I have a mini rose in here. I have a lantern that I added a bird's nest that I found back here. I think I found it in the back, in the front garden. I brought it back here. And these cinder blocks, I have some annuals growing, but most of them are just, they don't have anything right now. They had some green onions in the spring. Then in the middle is a patch of bearded iris. There's a dill that's self-seeded from last year. And then I have 2 peppers on this end over here. And guys, here's the side in which my cantaloupe is growing from. So here they are, and the goal is to have them wrap around this garden bed to grow. In this vertical planter, I have, on the very top, I have a thrifted birdhouse. And then over here I have a sage growing, and I've used that plant. This was a bonus plant that came with some other herbs that I had purchased some months back. And I use the sage for both tea and cooking. Down at the bottom, I have my oregano. I also use the oregano for teas and for cooking. And then recently, down on the ground, I added 2 salvias, 2 red verbena, and then 2 purple verbena at the back. And those are perennials that I'm hoping will spread out in the coming years and add a nice touch to this space. The salvia is purple blooms, and then, as I said before, I'm adding some red to this space, so these red verbena will do just that, and then some purple as well. And these were clearance plants that I picked up recently. And then I have my thrifted hen here in the middle. So over in the small garden bed, I have a collection of marigolds and cabbage growing here. And the marigolds is a beautiful, like, orangey yellow. So I can't wait for them to start flowering and bringing some color in this patch over here. They also serve as just some deterrents for bugs. I had some cilantro growing in this pot, and I have harvested quite a bit, and I think it's done. Over in this garden bed, I have a collection of plants growing. I have a tomato, two or three tomato plants, I think, some cabbage, cucumber, as well as beans. And then I also, in the middle, have okra growing as well. So an assortment of things. And then recently I threw down some lettuce seeds. So those, I think I did that last week. So let's see if I'll have some lettuce in this patch. Over on this side of the arch, I have one of my indoor spider plants is growing here. I'm letting it grow out quite a bit. There's some babies. I have a spot for it on the inside when the weather gets cooler as a hanging plant. It's actually going to be on a macrame, and so I'm letting it develop, hopefully lots of babies, that's going to hang down. Down here I have some autumn joy, sedum, daisies, some more marigolds in this other boot. And then here is my lavender in this pot. And then in this red pot, I threw down some morning glory seeds. And guys, I did that a week ago, and they are thriving. So I'm hoping that they will go up this trellis. And this is just a piece of metal gate that I recently picked up. And then I have a cucumber plant growing up the garden gate. I have to get another piece. I'm looking out for another like a metal plate hanger to put on this side as I have on the other side, and it's gonna serve as a trellis for the rest of this plant. So I'm on the search at my thrift stores for that in the coming days. Guys, up on the very top, I have a pot up here with some perennials, as well as some ground covers that I did recently. And then for steppers, throughout this garden, I've used thrifted wood or wood that I had in my stash. And so these pieces they were left over from building this. So I try to use everything that I have first, and then I pick up pieces, whether at my local Habitat for Humanity restorer or other thrifting venues. Over here I have my chamomile, and they have started blooming. So before that I was using the leaves in my tea, and as they were blooming I'm using the blooms, the petals, for tea as well. I have a few thrifted decor pieces here. In this pot, I have some bee balm that I use for tea. In this other pot here, stevia. I have some blooms over here in this pot. I have some peppermint over here, and then I have some basil in this pot. This plant here is an indoor plant. And then my 2 boxwoods down below. And then a few weeks ago I picked up these, this thrifted piece plant hanger. And then I added 2 thrifted baskets with some burlap that I had on hand. And I purchased some clearance petunias to put in them and to add some a pop of color in this corner. I have a patch, a cinder block patch over here. Outside of it is a marigold growing. Guys, and I have recently started to add these pieces of rocks here. These are rocks that I've collected on my own property, and the reason I'm adding it here, so I mentioned before, this backyard is on a slope, and this area here, when we get lots of rain, it actually floods. So I have been working on this area here, and the adding rocks here is one of the ways in which I am trying to mitigate the flood that happens here. So we'll see. I am going to probably purchase some rocks from my local hardware store, but or garden store, but I'm using what I have first. So this is the first round of collection, and we'll see how it goes. I have ginger growing in these cinder blocks, so over here and here. I also have a patch of basil that's self-seeded from last year. In the middle I have some ground covers as well, and here is a marigold that has a bloom on it, so I'm excited about that. And then in this planter I have strawberries growing, and I harvested some weeks ago, and I'm seeing some new flowers, so that tells me I'm going to get a little bit more strawberries. I have these 2 majestic okra plant growing. A few years ago I bought a pack of okra seeds that was like 10 cents a pack. It was at the end of the garden season, and I've just been letting it self-seed. I've been growing it just for the foliage that it has, as well as the flowers. It has some beautiful flowers, light yellow flowers that I really like. And then the okra, I usually give it away. So these are seeds from the previous pack that I had, that when the okra grows, I also save some to throw down in different areas of this space each year. Recently, I cut off a piece of my forsythia branch that was down lower to the ground and had developed some roots. So I brought it over here. Over here, I just have a very disorganized potting table. This is a thrifted piece that I picked up for $1 some years ago. and I am trying to figure out what I want to plant in here. So I'm gonna finish spraying the outside and the inside with some spray paint that I have on hand, and it already has holes in the bottom, drainage holes. So I'm gonna plant, I thought about some maybe succulents, but it's probably not gonna happen for this garden season, but at least I can prepare it for next year. I have a seeding spot over here. I call those my rest spots. And then in this tire, I have some lamiant growing with a thrifted shepherd hook and a lantern. And on the outside of this gate, I have some bearded iris. Guys, recently in these two DIY planters, I put down, in each of them I put down a zucchini seed. So we'll see if that grows. Over alongside this fence, I have a collection of bearded iris, daylily, and some shrimp plant. I repeated that over here as well. And here's the second spot that I have that zucchini seed. I planted that zucchini seed like the day before last. I have a indoor spider plant out here. And then I have 3 evergreen. So this is the larger one. And this is a plant that I had gotten from my front yard. So the previous owner had some evergreens up front, and then they cut it down when I purchased, before I purchased the home, and some sprouted back up. And so this was the first one that I bought back here some years ago, and it is doing really well. And then I planted last year, I believe I brought this other one back here, and then I have a smaller one on the other side as well. Some more shrimp plant and daylilies alongside here. And then here's the third evergreen. All right, guys, now we're gonna go into this area that I'm calling my courtyard garden. So last year I threw down some coneflower seeds, as well as some black-eyed Susan seeds alongside here. I also threw down some okra seeds at the beginning of spring. And then last year some zinnia seeds. And so I'm really happy that these perennials have been thriving here. This is a shaded area, so I wasn't sure how it was going to grow, the coneflower and the black-eyed Susan, but they're growing. And the zinnias grow well in sun as well as shade. So I'm really happy that that's happening alongside here. So this piece was a roadside find that I got a few days ago, and my thoughts were to bring it back here to add some elevation. I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do. Some of the ideas that I had is maybe chisel out this area, and for next year add some soil, and then maybe some creeping jennies to like hang down, or some kind of shaded something. So that's the plan so far. I also thought about maybe cutting off this piece and having like a bird bath, sit down, a bird bath basin, sit down on the top of it. But those are some ideas for now. I'm not sure yet, so we'll see what happens. But I thought it was a pretty cool piece to add back here. I was driving in my neighborhood a couple of days ago, and I saw it out there. It was put out there, and it was put out by the roadside, and I came home and got my son, and we went back to get it and brought it over here. I have a few hostas back here. So here's one of them, and there's some blooms happening. In this pot, I have some bearded iris. Over in this corner, I have another variety of hostas, and I see some blooms happening here as well, so I'm really happy about that. And then I just added some tiles that I picked up from the restore, and I did this work last year, and this space is ever developing. Actually, this whole garden area back here is ever developing. I have some other hostas. I think these two came from this plant right here that I've divided some years ago. These two back here, they don't get a whole lot of, they don't get any sunlight. And so guys, why hostas they do really great in the shade. You can see these two get speckles of sunlight, so they are larger than these two back here. I have this makeshift DIY bench that right now it's just a prop, but I have plans to secure it a bit so folks can actually sit there. On this side is similar to the other. I have this DIY planter that I have some bearded iris in. And then guys, over here I had planted some green onions and other plants. The green onions did really well, the other plants did not. I transplanted some of them in other areas, but I'll have to plan this out for next year and what I really want to put over here that will thrive. The last thing in this courtyard space is this bird bath that I need to add some water to, and this was a recent Amazon purchase that I just have hanging on the tree. Can be used as a bird bath or a bird feeder, and right now I have plans to use it as a bird bath, so I hung it up here, and I'm going to add some water to it. Guys, that is my garden tour for today. There are some areas that are thriving that I'm really happy about. There's some areas not so much, but I count those as kind of just experiment, so I know how to alter it or do it differently for next year. All right, well, thank you so much for hanging in this far in the video. I appreciate all of your support, and I will see you on the next one. In the meantime, please take care and be well.